talking about the Commanders' loss to the Seattle Drabhawks 29-26. There will be no spanking on the air.
Drab just escapes. Drab escapes narrowly. But he got it. He got
I
the
saw
dub.
Cakes tweeting out an optimistic message to the fans.
And what was that?
That this ensures that Ron Rivera will not return.
It's just like I tweeted. This is just it's the next nail in the coffin. I believe it's already nailed shut, but a loss like yesterday, a galling loss where he doesn't go for two, like the Ron Rivera of Carolina, I think would have gone for two, but this is a different Ron Rivera. I don't know why he wouldn't go for two. His job has slipped away already. Why wouldn't you risk it? Like what are you doing?
His explanation was very weird. We'll play it later, too.
I don't understand him
He tried
anymore.
to say because the Seahawks had time with 2 timeouts to get a field goal. Well, they did that anyway, so what's the difference?
They're going to have time regardless. I don't understand. He's very nonsensical. Well, but again, you only have a limited shelf life for Ron Rivera at this point.
I had tweeted that out, a quick 5-minute poll, because they got the ball, and I was like, well, if they score, should they go for 2? Should they? This is, fans, it's only 419 votes. 79% were yes.
Yeah. Now, it's easy for us to say that sitting in our couches and our lazy boys to make that call. It's much more high pressure for Ron to do it, and I understand why he didn't do it against Philly, correct? Earlier in the season.
Yes.
Well, now the window is closing on you. Like just put it all out there. Go for the win instead of putting your awful defense back out on the field again. I mean, you got to do it either way, but at least go for the win, put it out there. These are your last gasps of breath here in Washington, D.C. At least go down swinging is the way I see it. He wasn't doing it.
I'm in the minority. I didn't have a problem with it. Kick the extra point, play for overtime. You got to try to make a stop either way.
You have to make a stop either way.
That's not why we lost.
And ultimately, it doesn't make a difference. Your defense almost gave up 500 yards.
Right.
That's the story here. And Geno Smith wasn't even good. He wasn't sharp. He was better down the stretch, but that guy was holding on to the ball a lot. He seemed very indecisive. You constantly heard...
He was better than he had been in about a month. He put up better numbers than he had in about a month, of course, because he faces a weak Commanders secondary and a bad tackling team.
I thought their secondary was pretty good.
I thought Sanchez made good points on Geno kind of holding on to the ball, and he wasn't letting it rip, and yet they still ended up with almost 500 yards.
Well, they didn't do a good job of tackling, but to be honest, and the defense wasn't good. We haven't been able to get pressure since we traded Chase and Montez. But we lost the game, I think, in the middle of the second and third quarter. We just didn't score. We had like
3 straight
goals
3 and outs.
3 and outs, and that's where we lost the game. So it was kind of a poopy game. We made it interesting at the end.
That said, you do tie the game because Sam Howell and the Commanders had a nice game-tying drive. So the defense just has to make a play, and they couldn't.
Yeah, we're not getting the pressure, and they're not stopping the run. It's kind of a deadly combo. But Cakes is right. I mean, this regime will move on. But, it is what it is. The bright side is again, we asked Howell, you got to keep stacking good games, and he stacked another good one. Fumble was bad, but, the kid, if you ask me, it's getting into remarkable territory how well he's playing.
Yeah, you can't dispute it. It's to the point now where Josh Harris is going to sit down with the prospective GMs and coaches that are going to take over. Well, I guess the GM will pick the coach once he hires him first, and he's going to say, you're not picking a quarterback in the first round.
Well, I don't know if you're going to say that.
Guy.
I don't know if he's going to say that, but
if that GM believes in Sam Howell. I think
people will come in and look and say, you guys got a pretty good quarterback we can work with on a rookie deal. But, he's got to keep doing it. Can't stop. Can't just all of a sudden be awful. But so far, that kid's been pretty remarkable. So I was able to rest easy knowing that we got a great performance from him. It's too bad. It's too bad we blew that game because that was kind of must-win if you want to have a shot at the playoffs. Doesn't matter what you do with the Giants. The schedule's pretty daunting down the stretch. But whatever. I think we found our quarterback, so that's good. The future's bright. We got a new owner.
We'll have our official Howell eval at 6:45. Commanders, though, 4-6. So, yes, the playoffs seem like an absolute long shot. Now, they should get healthy this week when they face a New York Giants team that is dreadful.
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
The Giants are toss-up. Horrific.
I don't know. Dallas exploited them, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the
They're
Commanders,
2-8.
They're going to be heavily favored. I think they're already 10-point favorites at this point.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that line shifts as we get closer to
I
the
don't think it
game.
matters.
That's a mortal lock.
I mean,
Well,
maybe that's our survivor play. I know this is looking at it early, but when else are we going to burn?
Said that last
when
week.
else will we burn the Commanders? We can't throughout the rest of the season.
right.
I'd still be a little. I'd be holding my breath with it. I wouldn't be crazy about it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm crazy about it. We'll see. I have to look at the rest of the slate, but it's a shame. You know, I do.
It's a Ron Rivera season.
Yeah.
They're 4-6. This has been the hallmark of Ron Rivera's tenure here in Washington. They're always around 500. They're very mediocre. There are lost opportunities, and yesterday was one of them.
I mean, what is Dak Prescott going to do to this defense in a couple weeks if he keeps playing at the level he's been playing the last few weeks? What's CeeDee Lamb going to do to this defense?
There were a lot of people on social media yesterday saying fire Jack Del Rio. What difference does it make at this point?
He's getting fired along with the package at the end of the year. So I would
Jason
imagine,
was defending Del Rio a few weeks ago because
why? Why?
Well, in a couple of his seasons, he had highly ranked.
I don't care about those
defenses.
seasons. I care about what's happening right now. And this defense is allowing 380 yards per game, fourth worst in the league, and they allow 27.9 points per game. Should round it up to 28. That's second worst in the league.
Yeah.
They're an abject failure.
Well, I thought that
he's indefensible.
It's damning.
He's got to bring more pressure because they're not as effective without those two guys. And I think in years past they've done that. And you saw at moments where they did, when they brought extra guys. You just got to risk it.
Yeah.
He's a little risk averse.
That's the one place where I'll give him a slight pass is that they dealt his two best pass rushers at the deadline. Yeah. So, you deal your two best guys that bring pressure. And I know that there's been talk of, well, it's addition by subtraction. I don't know if you've really seen that so far through the two games now they haven't been there.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did a good job in terms of reducing points last week, but they weren't good enough.
They played the Patriots. That's what I said.
Right,
did you watch the Patriots in the morning?
Yeah, they're
the
bad.
reason the defense didn't give up many points is they played the Patriots. The Patriots-Colts game was one of the worst games in the history of pro football. I think the total going in was 42 points. Mm-hmm. It ended up with 16.
Quite an export that we sent to Germany. Wow, what a dud. Those people must be salty. But
and I used to defend Mac Jones a little bit because he had a decent rookie season.
He is
indefensible.
Hideously bad. The pick that he threw when they were actually about to come back and take a lead on the Colts was just one of the most just brain-freezing picks that you'll ever see a quarterback throw.
There are some teams in the NFL that are just so bad. I cannot give credit to the Commanders' defense for holding Mac Jones and the Patriots to 17 points. In fact, that's a bad performance against the Patriots. If they held the Patriots to 10, maybe I'd give them a little credit. It was 17. So they'll look decent against the Giants because the Giants are going to roll out Tommy DeVito at quarterback. Guy's living at home with his mom.
Yeah.
Lucky to be in the league. Started as a third-string quarterback this year.
Well, it's been disappointing that they haven't been able to engineer more of a pressure. Yeah, but, that is the consequence of trading their top two guys. So it is what it is. It's very frustrating, but I don't know.
Not only that, but, DK Metcalf just getting free releases during the prevent defense at the end that sets up the field goal. That Geno's going to go to either Lockett or DK Metcalf in those spots.
I don't know if it was a prevent defense.
Well,
he beat his man.
I think a lot of times
he beat St. Just on one of them.
Well, whatever it was,
they were finding areas in the zone. It looked like to me. I thought they covered them fairly well. But there were times where they were just finding open areas in the zone, and they just they were giving him those catches. I guess I don't know.
I didn't for one second think that Seattle wasn't going to get the line that they needed to kick the field goal. Did you ever have confidence that they were all of a sudden going to put up some stellar defensive front against them?
Not high confidence.
Under a minute left?
Not high confidence.
I thought we had a 50-50 chance.
Oh, 50-50.
Yeah. I thought we had a 50-50 chance of getting it into overtime.
But the defense, again, had given up a ton of yards before that, so there was no reason to have great faith that the defense would make a play. But you never know when a quarterback might make a mistake. Bad throw, tip ball.
I mean, I thought very easily he could have just missed guys. But, give him credit. They won. They deserved it. And they knocked us out of the playoffs, basically.
It's a sad state that year 4 of Ron Rivera is going to end up very similar to year 1, although in year 1 they backed into the playoffs with a 7-9 record. Some fans would get frustrated that you're kind of stuck in the middle. You're not going to have a super high draft choice because they're going to win 6 or 7 games. You're not as bad as Carolina. You're not as bad. Much like Antonio Pierce is getting a shot with the Raiders to kind of prove himself.
I thought it was a mediocre Bieniemy game yesterday, to be honest with you. There were a couple off-schedule plays that Sam pulled out of his butt. It was very, I'm not huge on balance, but I mean, I think at one point we had like four runs.
First half.
Like 25 throws or something. I mean, it was crazy.
And maybe he was a little late to the party because they kept mentioning it on the broadcast that the Seahawks were going with nickel and dime coverage and had a lot of corners in there. And it was like, well, this is when you run the football, when the box is light. And then they did start running the football.
There when they were down 19-12 maybe. They ran it 4 or 5 times. They scored to tie it up. That was like their best little stretch of running the football.
Well, those are some good play calling there where the Seahawk linebackers were getting beaten coverage by Gibson for the touchdown, and somebody else beat him as well for a long play. I think it was Robinson again.
They were throwing a lot to the backs.
Yeah.
Howell was.
Yeah.
I mean, those were his 2 top receivers yesterday.
Well, unlike the Seahawks had, if you include Jackson Smith and Jigba, they had 19 catches to their top 3 receivers. Mm-hmm. The top 3 receivers for the Commanders combined, McLaurin had 0. Dotson had 0. McLaurin had 4, and Curtis Samuel had 2. So it's combined
the
6 catches.
The Dotson usage is a head scratcher because in the beginning of the season he wasn't getting featured, and then he had like a heater-like run for I think it was 2 or 3 games, and then yesterday just targeted twice, no grabs.
I don't think that's what they designed. I think it's probably what the defense gave him.
Sure.
You're asking Sam because of all the sacks. He's got to get rid of the ball quick.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get rid of the ball in like less than 2 seconds.
And I think the coverage by the Seahawks was really good. They have good corners.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Their rookie corner's a stud.
Sure it is.
I didn't see great separation by the wide receivers. Like the balls that they actually threw to Dotson, he was blanketed.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like he was open.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look at the all 22.
Look, if Gibby's open or Brian Robinson is open and Dotson and McLaurin are blanketed, I don't have a problem with Howell spreading it out to those guys. Rather than take a sack, of course you're going to do that. Of course you utilize those guys.
Those were big plays.
Right?
At one point in the game, it was the battle of checkdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Is Howell had a long check down. Smith had a long check down. I mean, that's what it was. Those were big plays. All right, we'll be talking about it throughout the show. We'll open up the MGM National Harbor listener lines next. You can call us at 800-636-1067. Your reaction, the Commanders fall to the Seahawks 29-26. Are you more kind of pessimistic, bitter, upset, sad, whatever words you want to use, that the Commanders lost and are now 4-6 and playoffs seem very unlikely? Or do you find a level of optimism because, as Cakes pointed out in his tweet, the nails are in the coffin right now. Ron's not going to be back. You're going to have a new head coach, and you may have your quarterback of the future in Sam Howell.
Yeah, I'm over the whole Ron Rivera era here in D.C. I think most people that are fans of this team are. They're over the Ron experience. They're ready to move on. But yeah, there has to be optimism for the way Sam Howell has played, and I would guess whoever the new GM is going to have some pretty big holes to fill on the defense going forward. Like
another thing to point out,
you look at the defense and say, we're rebuilding this defense. This is no longer acceptable where you're allowing basically 30 points per game. Like, you're going to pay some attention to a unit that, I mean, let's be honest, they have paid a lot of attention to and poured a lot of draft capital into over the years.
Jamin Davis is making plays. I think there is. Well, there are definitely things.
But one of the plays, he was unblocked, and anybody gets through that hole and makes the play.
But give him some credit because we used to never even notice him when he was on the field. I do think there are things to be optimistic about. The other thing is if you're looking at the future and a regime change, which is coming, they have a ton of cap space.
Right.
It's an attractive job. The problem is we've been in this position every 3-4 years. And we always have optimism, and it never works out. So it's kind of like muted for me. Like I'm disappointed we lost the Seahawks. I thought, Seahawks deserved to win, but that was a winnable game. Gave it away. Deserved to lose it, but it was just winnable. Season's just shot, and we're going to bring in another coach, and it'll be optimism for a year or two, and then that'll probably eventually fail. So I'm kind of in a negative mindset about it.
I'm guessing
we brought in so many different coaches, all different types, and they all come in here and fail. I know it's different now. We have a different owner, and I think we have a quarterback, but it's hard to be optimistic, super optimistic.
I think this is the resignation phase for most Commanders fans. They're just resigned to playing out the string, seeing what happens with Ron. Hopefully, Sam keeps, building on what he's been doing, which has been pretty incredible so far. And those are the kind of things that you have to look forward to heading into 2024.
I know there's a clamoring for Bieniemy. I think it was a great Bieniemy game yesterday. We'll see. Maybe you just fire him and give him a 5 or 6 game shot.
Yeah,
head start.
I have no problem if Harris wants to pull the plug after Thanksgiving or whenever it might be. If you want to give Bieniemy the keys for 4 or 5 games to see how he handles things as a head coach,
why wait?
All for it.
Why not give it to him now?
Oh, I mean, if we got a new,
what are you waiting for?
If we got a breaking news sounder that said Ron was fired at 6:45 this morning, then
what do you think the chances
I wouldn't be surprised.
Honestly,
I think the chances are probably 10%. But I'm just saying, if I was Josh Harris, what are you waiting for? Let's give him a look-see. Let's get Ron and Jack out of there. Elevate somebody else to be the defense coordinator.
Here's the only thing I can think of that makes any sort of sense. Maybe Harris actually legitimately likes Ron as a person, and he's just doing him a solid and not embarrassing him by firing him with.
I think that could be part of it.
With 7 or 8 games left.
Okay, if he was Bill Belichick, who doesn't deserve really to be in New England anymore,
right.
I understand he's dealing with a bad deck of cards when you're looking at the offense.
Sure.
Not just the quarterback, the offense, because they have no playmakers. He deserves respect.
Right.
He's delivered 6 Super Bowls
to you.
He
actually has equity.
Ron has delivered mediocrity, with the best season being last year at 8-1. They were 7-9, backed into the playoffs. I can't remember the next year. I'm sure it was like 7-10, 7-9, whatever it was. What's the point?
I can't get into
I would give him a look-see, because all I'm saying is the Raiders blew out their head coach, blew out a coordinator, blew out their GM, and they've won 2 in a row. Now, partly because they have played the Giants and the Jets, I believe, were their 2 opponents. I mean, that's a big deal in the NFL. Take a look at the schedule. Take a look at who you've beaten. Take a look at who you played. Josh McDaniels might have won those 2 games. But they blew him out. Perfect timing for Antonio Pierce. And I tell you what, this would actually be perfect timing for Bieniemy, because the guys like him, right? Now, the guys do seem to like Ron Rivera. But all I'm saying is this is the landing spot. You blow him out this week, and you let Bieniemy get a dub, because you're going to get a dub against the Giants.
Maybe. You know who I keep thinking I'm seeing on the sideline? He's not listed as a coach, but I think he's there volunteering. It's amazing. Is Mike Singletary, unless I'm wrong.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm seeing him on the sideline.
He's prowling the sidelines as a volunteer for the Commanders.
You, former head coach, former
I haven't seen him in forever.
I looked up what Singletary was doing.
I think
a
he's
few
on
weeks
the
ago.
sideline.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he's a former teammate of Ron. I want to say Singletary was like coaching high school or something like that.
And
number 3.
Because if you look at the staff, he's done a great job of basically hiring no one threatening.
We cannot.
I mean, the staff is just full of guys. There's like nobody inspiring that could potentially threaten.
I mean, how long has Singletary been out of the game? The NFL game. It's been years.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw him on the sideline yesterday in gear, Commanders gear, and I think I've seen him before. But he's not even listed as a coach, so he might be just like volunteering, or just helping out. Who knows what's going on with that? But if you look at like the staff, there is nobody that jumps out at you to take over other than, I guess, Bieniemy. And again, I think he's been okay.
I mean, look, they had a pretty good offensive day yesterday. I understand the second quarter.
They had a
bunch
stretch.
I understand they had a bunch of 3 and outs, but overall they scored 26 points. Sam had 3 touchdown passes. They had, almost 400 yards of total offense. Mm-hmm. They finished with 356. So I guess I shouldn't say almost 400 yards.
The game was bad for 3 quarters.
The more I think about it, I'm more with Eric. Howell made those plays yesterday, but Ryan Robinson on a broken play on those 2 screen passes, Howell did a fantastic job. I wouldn't say Bieniemy called a great game. It was sluggish most of the game. A zillion punts. It was pretty ugly. He called a good drive there at the end with a Gibson touchdown, but outside of that, I wasn't that impressed with the play calling. Howell made some big time plays.
Howell made off-schedule plays,
and got some wiggle out of the pocket. That was a fantastic job.
And maybe that part of that was a function of your boys got blasted so badly against Baltimore that they just brought a more intense defensive effort against the Commanders. I would guess that would be part of that equation, don't you think?
I mean, definitely possible. They played much better on defense.
Right. I mean, they weren't going to turn in 2 duds like that back-to-back weeks.
Ravens ran for 300 yards on them.
Right.
But I think overall he's done a pretty good job, and there's no reason to keep Ron. So why not give the guy a look-see?
Well, you can, but I think
because what if he's not a good head coach, and what if you give him the job in the offseason?
I'm just trying to be objective, and I love Howell and Howell's development, but I don't think Bieniemy's been outstanding here. I think he's been okay. He's been about 50-50. 50% of the time you go okay, I like that game. 50% of the time you go that's
dud. Fine, but it's a lost season. So my take on it would be, what do you have to lose?
Correct.
You give him a 5-game-ish tryout and just see what happens. And if it's as bad as Ron or worse, then you don't even really consider him for the long-term head coaching game. But if all of a sudden he ascends and actually looks like an NFL head coach, you're like, oh, maybe we can work with something here.
I guess. Normally you don't give guys jobs just because what do you got to lose? That's not really a great reason to do it, but okay.
Well, there's no real reason to keep Ron Rivera around.
Oh, I agree. I just don't think that there's an obvious successor.
Other than he's been a coordinator for years and has interviewed for head coaching jobs a million times. The offense is improved this year. If you go year to year, they averaged 18.9 points.
Well, you got to give him some credit for helping.
This year they're averaging 21.7.
All right. I give him some credit for developing Howell.
Look, the team's not going anywhere. So the way I look at it is, it can't hurt you to give Bieniemy a 4 to 6 game audition. No matter when you decide to pull the plug.
Well, if he's smart,
I'm giving him a 7-game audition.
He might not take it, but I'm not sure he could be successful.
I don't know if Bieniemy's in the position and or the business to say no to an interim head coaching gig. He's had such a hard time getting to this spot.
Sounds like you're still more pessimistic. I did put it up as the Junkies poll of the day, brought to you by Van Meter Homes. Because you're in the same old skins, it's never going to change mentality.
Well, I'm very optimistic on Howell, and I have been for weeks, maybe months. But overall, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah, but if you're action to the latest loss, and are you optimistic about the future or pessimist?
Let's go to Rick in D.C. Rick, what's up?
I got this Monday. I need an operation for me.
Hey, was he doing a bit?
I'm not sure. Was it
sounded like Ed Orgeron.
Yeah,
Let's go to Jason in Richmond. Jason, what's up?
Hey, how you guys doing? Hey, first of all, number one, I'm impressed with Sam, and we got a quarterback, okay? No matter what, we got our quarterback. 2, if I was Bieniemy, why would you tell him we'll give you 7 games, okay, or 6 games, how many games left? But then the fact is that if he does well or he doesn't do well, with this particular defense, you set him up for failure.
I agree. I said that a couple weeks ago.
Right. You setting him up for failure, so that wouldn't be good for him. And if we get a new coach, I would not want him to get rid of Bieniemy. Bieniemy is a good offensive coach. He's done well with Sam. So, let's just say this. Keep Sam. Don't let Bieniemy walk out of that building and then build from there. Fire everybody on the defensive side. Hell, I fired Waterboy.
Yeah, but if you hire the hot names, the coordinator from the Detroit Lions,
Yeah,
if you hire the coordinator from the Texans,
Yeah.
because C.J. Stroud has looked so good, they're not going to keep Bieniemy.
No, that's not
They're
happening.
going to call the plays themselves.
And I'm pretty sure that Josh Harris is not going to hire a defensive dinosaur type of head coach that's just going to retain Bieniemy to be the OC going forward.
don't think so.
Pretty sure that's not going to happen. I wouldn't think.
Aren't those kind of the hot candidates? The guy in Detroit, the guy in the Texans?
Slowick,
They're offensive guys.
Slowick and Johnson. Yeah, those guys are going to get head coaching interviews without a doubt.
It would be super exciting if they did announce today that they are moving on and they gave it to Bieniemy. That would actually be super interesting.
And he pretty much would get a dub to start off.
Yeah, well, it's I'm not going to say impossible for them to
Right.
lose to the Giants. It's highly improbable they lose to the New York Giants.
All right, that's the fourth time now that JP has automatically dismissed the Giants as a walkover win.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Monday at 6:37, and I mean, it's the NFL.
It is the NFL.
I wouldn't just. I mean, DeVito threw 2 touchdowns yesterday. I wouldn't just assume they're incapable
Well, I would guess
of scoring.
most of those are in garbage time.
I'm sure
because I
they
kept
were.
seeing the scroll and the score of that game. At one point, I think it was like, wasn't it 35-0 or 42 to?
I think it was 28-0 at one point.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it was a bloodbath.
I know, but they lost to the Giants earlier, and their quarterback wasn't good then either.
That is very true.
You're right.
These are valid.
But here's what
points.
the Giants have done the last 3 weeks. They only put up 10 points against the Jets in a loss, 13-10. They put up 6 points in a loss to the Raiders, 30-6. And yesterday they got crushed, 49-17. Their last win was against the Commanders, 14-7. I'm just saying it's very unlikely that they win.
They could also win 14-7 again.
It's
could.
true.
Hey,
And
the
remember-
matchup predictor has the Commanders right now.
Yeah, what's the number?
71% chance
I'd like it to be-
Commanders win.
You know what, Drab? I'd like that to be at least 80. That tells me that,
Right.
that there's doubt out there on the streets.
Hey, what did you guys make of the St. Juice pass interference? Everybody was.
It was a
obviously-
pass interference. He had his left arm around the guy, then he had his right arm on the shoulder.
I mean, I thought so too, but I'm obviously biased. But there were a lot of angry Commander fans.
Yeah.
NFL is against us. Also, you had the Forbes ejection from the league office.
That was a bad ejection, I thought, but
I mean, St. Jude's had a rough drive there because you had the pass interference on 4th down. You had the face mask the next
Well,
play
he's
on Kenneth
always
Walker.
kind of handsy and
and then
with receivers.
It was tough for him,
Lockett
but
scored the
I thought
touchdown.
That's kind of
overall
his style.
He competed pretty hard. You know, it was a tough day. But
I thought the joke was when people were trying to claim it was uncatchable. The guy had one hand on it.
I didn't have a problem with it. It was
Right,
fine.
yeah.
It was fine. I thought the Forbes thing was probably a little egregious, but I mean, whatever. He hadn't been that good this year. I didn't feel like it was a big loss. To be honest with you.
Hey, but Ron had to have him. That was his guy. He was such a ball hawk at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He's going to transfer over to the pros.
Yeah.
Hasn't really worked out that way so far.
Rather have the corner on the other side now. He wasn't available.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a top 5 pick.
Yeah. That guy's a stud.